The tip. As I looked around the restaurant for the person I was supposed to see, I noticed my former wife, Susan, with a middle-aged man who appeared to be slightly overweight. He had obviously been in good physical form earlier, but time and indulgence had taken their toll. Susan seemed happy as she sat next to him. The man's whole appearance suggested riches. Memories flooded back to me as I stood in the foyer. Even though our divorce was 3 years ago, the feelings were still as fresh as they were then. That's how I ended up here, watching from a distance instead than beside her. Still, as things happen, she got what she wanted. I was traveling to Albany for a client meeting when my problem started. I had planned to stay overnight to avoid having to make the long drive back. But less than an hour into the trip, the client called to tell that his fender was broken, even though he was unharmed. He apologized for the late cancellation and expressed regret. I reassured him that it would not be a problem and proposed a new day. Still, I didn't feel ready for the 2 more hours of driving that were ahead of me. I promised myself I would try my hardest, and I was going home for a lovely meal with my wife. It took me 90 minutes to turn onto my street. 3 strange cars parked in the driveway were the first item that attracted my attention. I didn't give it much thought because I knew my wife frequently invited her friends around when I was abroad. I assumed everything was normal as I parked on the street and went inside the house. But the moment they saw 4 sets of clothes strewn all over the living room floor, they knew something was wrong. I had a terrible epiphany as I stood there. My wife did not cry out for aid with her passionate cries. It was a well-known request for more passionate kissing. I was shocked to learn the reality. My spouse was having an intimate relationship with another person. I was reluctant to go upstairs, but I knew I had to confront reality. As I got to the top of the stairs, I heard my wife let out a deep animal scream. Peering around the bedroom doorframe with stealth, I saw 3 males. 2 of them she didn't know, but the third was clearly Jeff Davis, her employer from work. They had my wife having sex, which shocked me. Jeff lavished her with compliments, and my contempt for him grew, expressing gratitude for her help with his corporate clientele. The realization that this fool was abusing my wife for his career horrified me. They all spoke disparagingly about her and tried to control her, treating her like a mere object of desire. As I observed her behavior, which was so unlike the lady I knew during our 10 years of marriage, I had to agree with Jeff's choice of disparaging term for her. I retreated silently, tiptoeing under the radar and hiding in my office. My digital video camera was still partially charged when I got it back. Instead of making some kind of illegal display, I wanted to record my wife's acts for legal reasons, and I had an old Christmas tape inside along with space for recording. I set up the camera at the bedroom door and recorded my wife's face along with the other participants. I was only able to stand for 510 minutes before my emotions got the better of me. Such a spectacle would arouse some people, but it merely made me feel depressed and deeply betrayed. I was so disappointed that I went downstairs to have some peace and quiet. I took my gun out of the safe in my workplace, taking the safety out of consideration. Even though I'm not violently inclined, I couldn't resist the need to stand up for myself if things got out of hand. I stepped into the living room and took the wallets and car keys from the abandoned pants all over the floor, deflating the tires of every car that was parked outside, including Sue's. Coming inside again, I smiled ominously as I devised a scheme that I knew would work if Sue took her phone. During my filming, I noticed it on the bedside table, so I set up my camera, hid behind the stairs, and called her. She finally answered after multiple missed calls. The calm in the home suggested she told the others to keep quiet. Sue asked, gasping for air, "Hey Bobby, how's Albany?" I could hear the men in the room chuckling slightly. "Do you seem tired? Are you all right?" I spoke with an air of fake concern. "Absolutely. I had to run upstairs to make my phone call." With a quick response, she collected herself. "I'll be returning home soon because my client canceled. Would you like to eat dinner?" I asked in a composed manner, but deep inside I was more upset than ever. "Going home right now?" With anxiety, she inquired. "Sounds excellent. I just have to get ready, sweetie." She spat back, "See you," and ended the call suddenly, leaving me smiling, knowing what was going to happen in a minute. Just as expected, 4 fully nude people started to come down the stairs and into the living room. The men dressed quickly, and Sue quickly got ready as well. Sue pulled on shoes and a jacket as they all hurried out the door, hoping they would go before her. If she hadn't been so giddy, she could have seen my automobile sitting on the street. Sue heard the men shouting at her at the same time, so she went out onto the porch to hear them. I slammed the front door shut and locked it behind her at that exact moment. I shut the door, but not before my wife saw my face and tried to talk to me through the side window, her voice seeming like a plea. The discussion period had ended. The other men came back to my porch and pounded on the front door, making it clear they were after their possessions. When I saw what they were going to do, I dialed emergency, registering a break-in attempt. I was told by the dispatcher that a neighbor had already placed a call. I gave the police my name and address and waited for help, which came 2 minutes later. I confronted the 2 responding policemen after my wife had been questioned by the police, telling them that my wife had been abused by the men there and asking that they arrest them. The males reacted instantly, yelling that she had invited them and that she had agreed, refuting any claims of torture. All of us turned to face Sue, waiting for her answer, including me. She avoided making eye contact and acknowledged, in a quiet, embarrassed voice, that she had let the guys into the house, had had intimate relations with them, and had not been mistreated. She made the decision on her own. The males appeared relieved to be free of accusations of abuse. A short while later, 2 more squad cars approached, and for their report, they wrote down everyone's name. Next, the senior officer came over to me and said there wasn't much legal action I could take because my wife had brought these men, and they were all older than 18. He said something about counseling or something similar, glaring down at my wife as he said it. I told the police that Mrs. Thomas would not be permitted to return inside the house and gave them instructions to summon a taxi. One of the men found out they had flat tires that evening and ordered a taxi. They also tried to accuse me of robbing them of their possessions, but I told the police that their assertions were false. I turned and walked back to the porch, leaving Sue with them until the cab came. Anger streaming through my eyes, I stood on the porch. To my wife's credit, she bravely came up to me. Had she known about my anger and the gun I was carrying, she might have run away. "Bobby, I apologize sincerely." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off quickly. "My heart is broken, and I will never be able to forgive you. As for Jeff calling you a strumpet, well, I guess it fits. I will now address you as such and will not be using your true name going forward. Please use Tad to contact me if you ever need to." After saying my last words, I left her standing there and went back into the house, locking the door behind me. With tears in her eyes, she raced back to the group, and Jeff tried to comfort her. Oddly, I felt some relief when she rejected his embrace. But my short-lived happiness did not last long. When I got back to my bedroom, there was a strong aroma of making love, which made me feel even more uncomfortable. I flew into a rage and ransacked the whole place. I picked up the mattress and threw it onto the front yard. I got my toolbox out of the garage and took apart the bed, throwing the components and the mattress outside. I grabbed Sue's cell phone off the floor and went back to the bedroom, looking through her messages and contacts. As expected, I found disgusting emails, pictures, and even videos of random men having sex with her. Looking over the pictures, she obviously knew them. I laughed cruelly at how attentive I had once been to her, but I knew those were long gone. I carried all of the boxes from our bedroom downstairs and placed them on the front lawn in different stacks. As I was cleaning out the guest room with her possessions, I made a startling discovery. The same as I had done with the bedroom stuff, I moved every dresser drawer outdoors. When I tried to open the final bottom drawer, I got resistance. Fuming with rage, I jerked it hard and heard the unmistakable snap. The drawer eventually opened with some force, exposing the obstruction source. Beneath are 7 or 8 secret DVDs. Luckily, the drive wasn't damaged when I unintentionally fractured one of the plastic casings. As I looked over the CDs, my heart fell again. It felt impossible that I could feel any worse, yet it did. I went downstairs and examined the disc titles, which made me even more anxious. When I got to the living room, I put everything on shelves so I could look at it all more closely. On the first disc, Sue was shown at Sarah's house with her close friend Sarah. Sue used to help out at Sarah's get-togethers in Avon, which were usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They appeared to have gotten close with a number of people at her house. Tears came to my eyes over the course of several hours of watching the footage, only stopping when I saw the last 2 CDs. In the first, I sponsored Sue's tennis instructor, who was shown off with her. Every Saturday, she went to lessons. Later in the evening, it was evident that she was too tired for intimacy. The second disc showed Sue having intimate relationships with Jeff, her boss, and Jeff's supervisor, Bill Evans, in the boardroom at work. Bill was well known in the neighborhood and frequently highlighted in press pieces for his charitable endeavors, which I later learned included my wife's personal matters. I took out a big envelope and carefully put the cassette tape I had recorded earlier, the CDs, and my cell phone inside. It was my goal to give the full package to my longtime friend and trustworthy attorney, Ted Worth. There were only two people I really trusted. He was one of them. That was all that mattered at the time. I glanced at Sue's desk computer, turned it on, and started copying all of the files, emails, pictures, and videos to external disks. The procedure took about an hour to finish, and then I started going through my wife's digital files. There were scenes on the videos that looked a lot like the CDs I had found. Furthermore, websites. I dug deeper and found a treasure mine of emails from roughly 6 months ago. She tried to hide them behind fictitious file names, but I found letters she sent to Jeff and a number of other guys, as well as conversations with Sarah. I had written them off until just last week, when one of them almost broke me. I considered pulling my firearm on her, but I decided she wasn't worth it. I needed to keep my strength up. Sue's email to Sarah was the only one that had such a profound effect on me. Sarah asked Sue to describe her perfect future partner and inquired why she hadn't moved out to be single again. This is her response. I'm not interested in him anymore. Sarah, Bobby is obedient yet bumbling. I worry he'll find out soon about my covert way of living. While love makes him blind, he's not completely illiterate. He's been gaining weight lately, and it bothers me that his belly is becoming bigger. When compared to other males, he falls short. I also hate mustaches and beards, which give him a slightly disgusting appearance. I used to love him so much, but I can't give up on the exhilaration of the last few years. If he gets involved, his best friend, who is a lawyer, could cause issues. At work, Jeff and Bill make suggestive remarks about benefits and promotions. I chuckle. I also want a car and a house. I could possibly get monthly alimony if I play my cards well. Not to mention, I'm looking forward to our celebration on Tuesday. Awaiting my tennis injury's healing. Tony is very remarkable. Make sure I get the footage from last Thursday. I had never seen that many males at once before. My ideal partner would be wealthy, dependable, obedient, and not overly intelligent. He has to indulge all my whims and still be curious about which one. I laugh. The bedroom doesn't matter to me as long as money is involved. I chuckle. It sometimes seems too simple to satisfy my wants elsewhere. Bobby's home now, dratted. I had to leave. I'll see you on Tuesday. Give me a call, Sue. I have read this letter several times. The last few years have harmed me a great deal, and its remarks are terrible. Was this how she really felt about me? Was she cheating on me for more than 2 years because my love was so blind? After that, I went to bed and dozed off on the couch. I had a sleepless night and called in ill to work the next morning. I contacted Ted Worth, my attorney and close friend. Ted's secretary, Mary, took the call. I was practically as old as Ted. I asked for a meeting immediately, but she told me he would be in court all day. Ted has to meet me at his office in an hour, Mary told him. Bring up Tammy Brown's name if he starts bugging you with meaningless things. That will catch his interest. I said, see you in an hour, and quickly hung up. Just as I started to get dressed, my phone rang. Unwilling to talk to Sue, I looked at the caller ID. I picked up the unknown number, thinking it might be Ted calling back. Greetings, Mr. Thomas. Bill Evans from Susan's office is here. I would like to talk about what happened at your place last night. If that is okay, could we arrange a meeting in my office today to go over the details for everyone concerned? I'm not sure whether he knew that my wife and he were on camera at his job. I was aware that he was worried about keeping Jeff Davis's important clientele. He probably didn't want to lose Jeff and my wife because they were important assets to him. He was undoubtedly also concerned about bad press for both his business and himself. Mr. Evans, I'll give you a call back at this number before noon to set up something for today, but I have a crucial meeting this morning. Calmly, I gave him my assurance. I said it as if he were debating with me. He was going to have a shock. I caught a peek of something like an oddball yard sale as I stepped outside. Sue's clothes and the damaged bed were still lying around. An old neighbor waved, a look of curiosity on her face. I was aware that I would become the neighborhood buzz. It was a suburb sensation, as they say in the papers. I stopped for a bite to eat in the city center and went directly to Ted's office. Mary made me a cup of coffee. An abundance of cream. Absent sugar. Our pass together was lengthy. Bobby, holy crap. I don't know what you have on Tad, but when I brought up his name, he told me to remove him from his agenda for today. Give me a month off, please. She made a joke. She humorously added, if you want to know who Tammy Brown is. Ted has to answer that. And where on earth is he now? I asked. He promised to arrive immediately. She told me he had to postpone his appointment with the judge for today's court appearance. That's when he entered. Bobby, holy crap. Brown Tammy. I bet you're in serious trouble for bringing up that name to me. Let's chat when you come into the office. Tad shot back. Mary, don't patch me through to anyone right now. After grabbing my coffee, he closed the door for his privacy. I told them what had happened the night before and what I had learned about Sue's new way of life. I then gave him an envelope with the proof I had collected. Finally, he said something. He listened to my story uninterrupted and with great attention. As he absorbed the previous night's events, I could see the legal gears working in his head. I also told him about the meeting that Bill Evans had requested today. All right, Bobby, let's set some priorities. Since I've known you for a long time, I am aware of how devastated you are. Is there a possibility of getting back together with Sue? He asked. Ted, you would immediately leave Katie if you discovered those emails and films and she were your wife. I want to cause some major harm in addition to getting a divorce. I said to myself, I'm not going to take this betrayal lying down. Okay, so we're going to sue the tennis club and Tony first. Since Sarah is only a friend, she is off the table. That's not the case at Sue's place of employment, though. Second, the two clients and their businesses that were at your home will be sued by us. We will also pursue Bill Evans, Jeff Davis, and their allies. Ted advised me that things can get worse before they got better. But I don't care, I said angrily. I'm going to make these people pay for what they've done through Sue, even if it means using physical force. Okay, Bobby, let's review what Bill Evans requested, and then we can move forward. Ted told me we looked at a few choices, and I liked the last one. It made the most sense to take aim directly at Sue's place of employment. Ted clarified that as Sue's bosses, Davis, Evans, and Sue were captured on camera in their boardroom, providing me with leverage. Serious legal ramifications might also follow. It sounded good to me. Ted also made a suggestion that Bill Evans' position would shift and probably lead to a settlement offer once he saw the facts we had. I said strongly, he can forget it if it's less than $2 million. Ted, I'll tell you what. Put it in second. $5 million. I've previously seen your court bills. I made a joke. Come on over at 7 p.m. tonight. Katie is going to make us a delicious dinner. I insisted that you could need a vacation from home. After this, I quickly made an appointment with Bill Evans at 2 p.m. Mary glanced inside the workspace. Ted, you have an internet call from them. 1, she told him. I told you not to call, Mary. He got angry and snapped. Ted, I apologize, but this is Susan. She's reaching out to you, and I figured you might want to respond. Mary remained steadfast. I'm sorry, Mary, but this is just the beginning of a long day. Is she aware that Bobby is here? He asked. Ted, not that I know. She answered. Inform her that I will speak with her shortly. Mary quickly made her way out to the reception area while he spoke more gently. She's probably already realized that her computer, phone, and all of her DVDs are gone. She was probably upset that I had thrown our bed and all of her stuff on the front lawn. I told him, Whoa, you had a pretty hectic evening. Please don't try to take over this conversation. Let me manage it. I have some clarifications to make as your attorney at this time. He gestured at me and put the call through. She was talking to Tad in a one-sided conversation that I was starting to overhear, but I could almost hear what she was saying. Hi, Ted here. This is Susan. I did indeed speak with him previously. Bobby is my friend and a man of integrity. I assumed that rather than betraying him, you, of all people, would stand by him. Sue, please make no excuses. I'm not feeling it. Yes, I will speak for him. He makes compelling points. You do realize that this will not be enjoyable? I will speak with him. However, you have broken a man who has always been devoted to you and truly loved you. I doubt he's interested in what you think. Obtain a decent attorney for yourself, is my recommendation. One will be required. Indeed, Bill Evans made a 2 p.m. appointment. However, I don't believe you ought to go. Sue, pay attention to me. Things will get serious if you even try to listen in outside the office door. I'll tell Bobby to leave. It's best to hold off and maintain your composure today. I understand that we left your stuff on the grass, but in the same way that you can let others into your bedroom, He has the authority to take your goods from the house. To be honest, I'm shocked that he didn't use physical force last night. He did carry a weapon, but it was for self-defense. The police report contains it. I'm not sure, but I'm quite sure I would be in custody right now if it were my Katie. In light of the situation, I believe he behaved out of rage. You'll need to talk to the co-owner of the house about your computer, phone, and any other missing stuff. Maybe he dropped them on the grass with your clothes, and someone picked them up. I've taken care of the house's escrow paperwork entirely. You two also possess equal rights. Each of you is free to choose how to use these rights. In response, Ted said he would let him know right away and told Sue to stay put while Bobby stayed in the house until everything was sorted out because it wasn't safe for her to be there with him right now. Then he warned Sue not to press the issue and admitted that he was tempted to give her a nose punch. He told her to stay with Sarah and said he would stay in touch, urging her to get in touch with him through her attorney once they had hired one. Ted was Bobby's friend as well as his attorney, so tears would not win him over now. He said that her tears would not change him, and that, in certain situations, he was capable of cruelty. This seemed to be one of those occasions. He apologized that she would see a part of him that was only visible to his adversaries and told her that she would not enjoy it. Ted ended by telling Sue that he didn't want to talk to her and that she should stay away from Bobby and stay in her office. Ted asked, glancing up at me, if I heard most of that talk. His voice was melancholy. I told my friend that I had caught the most of it, and I wanted to tell her how I really felt, face to face. I did, however, acknowledge that, at least not yet, I didn't think I could handle the hurt of seeing her again. With a sudden upbeat and optimistic tone, he said, I have a couple of requests for you, Bobby. Give those tapes to me first. Tad motioned me to get the videotapes out of the packet. The ones from the night before, the ones with Tony at the tennis club, the ones with Sue and Mr. Davis at her office with Mr. Evans. I gave him the cassettes, and he told me to tell Mary to come to lunch. I regarded him with some puzzlement, and he spoke quickly. I believe it would be best if I personally review them to prevent any additional stress before our meeting at 2 p.m. Furthermore, I don't think viewing this content at this time would be beneficial to you. I would prefer that you not be angry prior to our appointment with Bill Evans. I thanked him and recognized his wisdom before telling Mary the good news. She joked that since Ted was paying the tab, I should take her to a fancy restaurant. We both laughed and walked off the property. Mary was a great eating companion, and she took my mind off my problems for the next hour. When we got back to the office, we heard Ted clapping. He was dancing a bit triumphantly at his desk, full of energy. Bobby, these records are revolutionary, he said. I can't believe it. My face became melancholic, and I believe he finally understood why. Oh, Bobby, I apologize so much for not realizing how important these videos were. I am aware of how much Sue's actions have wounded you. I was simply thrilled with what I had discovered. He offered a heartfelt apology. Come on over here, Bobby. Ted called out to me. I need your eyes on something. And I did as I was told, standing behind him so I could see his screen. Have you viewed the complete video that Tony and Sue shot at the tennis club? He asked. No, yesterday night I was only able to get a glimpse of it. To be honest, I had a hard time not wanting to lash out or worse because of it. All right, get ready. Tony and Sue draw a small audience in the men's locker room near the end, right after they're done. Yes, the dressing room of the tennis club. She let the other men who were observing to join in after Tony, and I hate to say it. Ted pointed to the screen on his desk and said, I'm not telling you this to upset you, but to shed light on this guy right here. He was referring to an elderly man who DML had been massaging with a towel. He inquired if I knew him, a walrus-like mustache and long gray hair. When Ted pressed play on the video, I saw him throw away the towel to show a huge package that any man would be proud of. The problem was that he approached my wife directly and started a conversation with her. 5 more males were waiting impatiently for her turn the next instant. I said, I don't know who this guy is, but I'm assuming you do. I answered, attempting to remain calm. Here's some fodder for our meeting at the tennis club at 16 Nassie today, Bobby. He told me, his eagerness evident as he described his plan. When I heard his plan, I smiled. Ted was not only one of my best friends, but also a superb attorney. Having him on my side this time made me feel relieved. Armed with a legal envelope, printed photos, and a portable DVD player, we left his office and headed downtown. When we got to Sue's building, We went to Bill Evans's office on the top floor. Sue was one story down. We finally had to wait in the reception area before being shown into Mr. Evans' office was opulently decorated. I felt like someone was watching me from the hallway just before I went in. I looked that way and saw the woman just before she disappeared around the bend. Who would you guess? I pondered in my mind, happy that I wouldn't have to face her today. We entered Bill's lavishly furnished office, which was also lavishly decorated with plaques, awards, and pictures of him with other famous people. I entertained the notion, was Sue ever brought here by him? My contempt for Mr. Evans grew even greater at that very moment. I initiated the conversation by introducing Ted. Greetings, Mr. Evans. Ted Worth, a friend of mine, will be present at the meeting you have planned for today, I told Bill while we shook hands. Bob Thomas, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Evans asked. I thought this was meant to be a private meeting between you and me. Well, I thought I would take Ted with me, I said firmly. Anything you have to say to me, you can say to him too, avoiding discussion. He acknowledged Ted's presence and spoke to me alone, ignoring Ted. Ted started to smile at this, even though I knew what was going to happen next. I let Mr. Evans finish his sentence before we popped his bubble. Bob, if I may call you that? Bill inquired. Not a single problem. As a matter of fact, I believe that Jeff Davis should also attend this meeting. I told Mr. that I wasn't sure whether that was possible, but it worries him too. Evans. There was a delay before he hit the intercom button. Julie, let Jeff know that I need him in my office right now. Tell him to get here immediately and to drop everything. Recognized. Jeff will arrive soon. I want to sincerely apologize in the interim for any inconvenience that Jeff and Sue have caused you. I understand that last night must have been terrible, but if we work together, we might be able to come up with a solution that works for everyone. With optimism, Bill said. Mr. Evans, what exactly do you mean? As I waited for Jeff to arrive, I asked, Sue, I really do feel sorry for your wife. Bill started, but Jeff walked in and cut him off. He seemed to pause for a second, as if he was going to turn away. But Bill motioned for him to sit down. Jeff complied reluctantly, not making eye contact with me. Bob, I wanted to say how much I love Sue. He opened his mouth to say something, almost like a daughter, but Ted interrupted. Tendency toward incest, Mr. Evans. He was taken aback when Ted asked. I laughed to myself, realizing that Ted's words had a purpose. What do you propose? Do I like the idea of incest? What in the world does that signify? He shot back, looking indignant. All right, let me to explain. Put the DVD player on Bill's desk, Ted said. A picture is worth 1,000 words. These are still images from the video that you are going to see. It was Jeff he gave them to, not Bill. With startled eyes, Jeff handed them carefully to Bill. There was no question in my mind regarding Bill and Jeff's identities or their activities because the pictures showed them both interacting with my wife. I even had a suspicion that Bill knew the table in the boardroom where he and Sue had done their business. Jeff, are you really suggesting that you were stupid enough to film this and make copies? Bill asked, almost losing his words. Jeff was utterly bewildered and was obviously unable to respond at this time. This is how it's going to happen, Mr. Evans. Oh, and just to be clear, I am both Bobby's friend and attorney. Allow me to clarify what we anticipate and how you are expected to respond. Tad, clearly enjoying the opportunity, told the stunned audience. First off, Sue is unquestionably still in her position. Bobby thinks she'll need a job because she seems to get along with everyone here. He winked subtly when he addressed Bill with this sentence. Second, Mr. Davis is no longer involved in this calculation. Tad said to Bill, Sue stays, and he leaves, pointing to the shocked Jeff. Thirdly, we anticipate receiving a financial offer from you that values our intelligence. BF within 5 business days. We will consider your initial proposal and respond with a yes or no. We expect to file a lawsuit in 2 months, maybe sooner if needed. Tad turned on the video and swiveled the screen so Bill could see it before they could say anything. It showed both men repeatedly having sex with my wife in their boardroom. Jeff was involved in the video recording, so he didn't need to watch. Bill just looked on, mouth wide open. I could see his brain turning around in circles, trying to figure out how to save his family, his business, his reputation, and most crucially, his money. I knew something would happen soon. Jeff, we'll need to have a serious conversation regarding your future job here when these gentlemen leave today. I will confer with my legal counsel in order to work out a settlement that meets some of your needs. You both understand the possible consequences for our company should this information go public too soon. Bill thought out loud. Calm down, Mr. Evans. We will keep your information private until we hear from you with a genuine proposal. I would hold off on firing Mr. Davis for the time being, though he may have more copies of the video, giving him more power. You and Mr. Davis can handle this on your own if we don't take action. Oh, and just so you know, having sex with an employee could have legal repercussions for both of you, which would negatively affect your prospects for employment. Tad warned them. When we got up to leave, Tad took back the DVD player and the pictures we had brought. Bill and Jeff appeared ready for a private conversation as we were leaving. I asked Tad a question, but he motioned for us to keep quiet until we were outside. Tad had caught me unaware that my wife was around the corner, trying to listen in on our talk. I heard Mr. Evans growling into Julie's intercom, the last thing I heard. Bring Sue Thomas over right now. I smiled, expecting a fascinating conversation. I'd found his DVD in our house, and Bill would soon find out. After I was outside, I asked him why he'd suggested Jeff use his own footage to turn the tables on Bill. As they say, divide and conquer. Ted clarified, instead of putting up a united front, it would be better if they each looked out for themselves. In this manner, we may use them against one another in the event that Bill makes a mediocre offer. Tad sensibly pointed out that both Jeff and Bill are churchgoers and have families. As their actions on the videotape suggest, they don't want to upset the family just yet. When I left the building, I knew that instead of being the prestigious institution where my wife had worked for years, people would now remember it as the spot where she had deceived me. I felt sad thinking about it. Ted's remarks brought me back to the present. Okay, before our next meeting at the tennis club at 4 p.m., let's have a beer. I need to talk to you about something, and I could use a drink together right now. Ted commented as we drove across town toward the tennis club, though I'm not exactly sure how yet. We made a halt at the charming restaurant bar next to the tennis club. Ted introduced himself and placed an order for 2 beers. Bobby, I think Bill Evans will make you an offer, but probably not for $1.5 million. His legal staff is quite skilled. I know them from a previous case. He's a realist as well. I'll give him a call tomorrow to let him know that his client's personal or professional life won't be well served by a lowball offer. I'll offer about $3 million, or maybe give up on the talks completely. He revealed. Moreover, I would like to know if I have your permission to disparage Susan in the case that the offer is turned down. Nothing will stop me from doing this. It is my responsibility as your attorney to do all within my power to secure a favorable outcome for you in court, even if that means casting her in a negative light. It might get very publicized and unpleasant. To win our case, I'll use every legal tactic at my disposal. The amount of potentially damaging information that could come to light regarding Sue, your marriage, and even your extramarital affairs may be more than you can handle. Ted tacked on, I'm not sure if you've considered this aspect. I said that I thought I had more integrity than they did, and that I had thought the topic through carefully. I intimated to Ted that while I was ready to move forward if required, I would want to investigate the money offer path first. Ted concurred and recommended that they begin by assessing Bill's qualifications. He promised to take care of all the paperwork quickly in case Bill's offer wasn't suitable. He also discussed using his connections at 3 local news stations and his newspaper ties. He indicated that even if it meant, as in sitcoms, blue bars to edit the obscene material, they would still be happy to receive any footage or photographs. Ted, you've always supported me and I have faith in your abilities. I really wish that this entire disaster had never occurred. It was nicer to be an unaware spouse than to have your cheating wife publicly shame you. That being said, you have my permission to take any required action. I didn't start this whole mess, but I'm determined to get this over with quickly. My voice was filled with frustration as I spoke. I get it, Bobby. Not an issue. Let's talk about the agenda item for our upcoming meeting now. Mr. Harry Rydell is the person who owns the Ace Tennis Club. This is the man I mentioned in my office's video. He's made it clear that he won't interfere and will probably take a laissez-faire stance, saying that grown-ups will be adults. For the sake of appearances, Tony's tennis coach might even be fired before being hired again. Tony is well liked in the club, especially by the female patrons. Bobby, never forget that although males are the ones who pay the club dues, women are equally involved. This dynamic will play a crucial role in your communication with Mr. Rydell. He gave me an update on things. It was clear that Mr. Rydell and Thad didn't get along when we got there right on time. There was an immediate sense of enmity between them. Mr. Rydell gave Thad a direct tell, announcing the end of the meeting. He nodded toward me and said, "Mr. Rydell, this is Bob Thomas. His wife is a member of your club. We have learned that your tennis coach, Tony Simba, was having an extramarital affair with Mr. Thomas's wife." Thad concluded, "We'd like to know what you plan to do about this." He waited for Rydell to say something, but even I could tell that he would take matters into his own hands and, in a few sentences, damn Thad to hell. "It's none of my business what two consenting adults do in private on their own time. Thomas, Mr. as Harry Rydell told us. And as for you, Mr. Thomas, please stop crying to me and accusing me of being the reason your wife strays if you are unable to satisfy her in the bedroom. The Ace Tennis Club is frequented by many disgruntled spouses. Some come back because of the individual attention my team gives them." With a smirk, Harry continued, "If you get my drift." Ted held my wrist in check and softly told me to keep my cool and follow his example when I felt like lashing out at him. "You know, Harry, you're thinking that this happened outside the club without permission or knowledge from the owner. It's arrogant of you to assume things like this." Ted came over to him, got out a DVD player, and set it down on his desk. Ted clicked the play button and pointed the screen at Harry. His response made it clear that he wasn't pleased with what he witnessed in the video. Before Harry could reply, Thad said, "Harry, you took advantage of a paying member of your club with full knowledge and your colleague's complicity. Mrs. Susan Thomas, a married lady whose debts were settled by Mr. Thomas, is currently an unhappy client." Thad told Mr. Rydell, who remained silent, "Every man who pays his dues will be curious to find out if his spouse is spending money on comparable activities while he is paying for them when this information comes to light. That day, I'm going to need to subpoena everyone who was in the locker room." Ted continued in a tone that was almost narrative, saying that married guys might not be happy with you about this. When recording in the locker room, there's also the matter of reasonable expectation of privacy. Ted continued, "Harry, after I'm through with you, your club won't retain its community reputation and your bank account may suffer as well. This is our goal, then a significant proposal from you and swift execution." As we watched Harry Rydell ponder his alternatives, Ted came to the conclusion that doing so could prevent you significant inconvenience and financial damage. "Ted, I can't dispute with your logic, but you're still a real piece of work. I'll give you a call with my offer tomorrow. All of the tapes will be given back to me and kept private if I comply. I will also gladly let Tony go from his job. Get the heck out of here, legal extortionists, if that's what you came for." Harry Rydell brushed us off while Ted grinned and took out the DVD player. Ted said to Harry, "Oh, and say hi to Tito Martinez," as he left the room. This was all Harry could reply. "Go to Hellworth." All the way back to the parking lot, Ted laughed. That was quite the journey. As we made our way to Tad's place for a delicious prepared supper, he told me, "Now we wait for suggestions." Bill Evans made almost 2 offers by the end of the week. $7 million in order to keep Sue on staff. Jeff Davis lost his job as a result of foolishly giving Bill Evans all of his tapes. Bill just fired him, giving poor Jeff very little legal recourse. The night I caught my wife with Jeff, I went after the 2 idiots that were with her. They were also 2 of Jeff's most important clients. Neither of them want attention for themselves or their businesses. For me to remain silent, they each promised me $1 million. Harry Rydell suggested we file a lawsuit but declined to make any kind of offer. So we did, and by the time we were through with him, he had lost $3 million. A large number of people left his club, and he was forced to give up ownership. He probably believed he could get away with it. However, neither the infidelity nor the video from the private shower rooms impressed the judge. I gave Sue the house and automobile she wanted, without requiring her to pay me a dime in child support. In court, I saw her only twice. She started crying both times I called her a strumpet. I wondered a lot about why she was crying now and not earlier, when she was causing me so much pain. I took Ted's advice and ended up with more money than I could have ever anticipated. Even now, the agony continues to haunt me. In a moment, all the hardships of that terrible year came flooding back. It wasn't until I jolted out of my memory and heard the restaurant manager asking how I was doing that I noticed someone was talking to me. I shook my head to clear my mind, not knowing how long I had been buried in thought, and turned back to the here and now. "Sorry, I was just thinking back on a previous matter when I noticed the group I had come to see. Thank you once again, I said to the manager, noting his inquisitive look, which reminded me of how people look at an old person deep in thought. I headed straight for my former spouse's table. Her expression showed her amazement. I had a beard, long hair, and was overweight when we last spent time together. I was also recovering from a baseball-related knee injury. That was my justification back then. But in all honesty, I had become comfortable with our existence together. Now, with the money from Jeff and Bill's business, I got my knee fixed, trimmed from frequent workouts, and a shorter hairstyle. Now, my suits were fancy, and I tried to look good in public. I decided to take the lead. "Trumpet, you look amazing today. Almost forgot how beautiful you could be," I said, purposely setting off a chain reaction. I was perfectly aware of how to irritate her. "My name is Bobby Susan. Why are you unable to call me by name?" She shot back, obviously agitated. "Strumpet, I did not label you." "Who, do you know? It just seems appropriate to me. 3 years ago, I told you that you would break my heart. I stated to the man next to her that I would always remember her by that term, and he started to protest and get up from his seat. Sue, nevertheless, told him to calm down. Her makeup smudged as tears welled up. "Go freshen up, Sue, and fix your face," said her partner. "I'll take care of this moron for you." She stood there after saying that, and I looked back at her, maybe expressing the pain I had been holding inside for 3 years. She began to cry more intensely, and I was shocked that she felt any emotion at all for me. Or maybe it was residual guilt, probably a combination of the two. She said, sobbing, "I expect you to be gone when I return." She went to the bathroom, where I saw the large engagement ring on her finger before she walked out. "You have to be Bob Thomas, Sue's former husband?" he asked in a contemptuous manner. "Yes," I replied, sensing his outrage, "and you must be the new man she's been dreaming of." "I'm Sue's CFO, and if I were you, I wouldn't use that term," he said, clearly not wanting to start a commotion. "All I wanted to do was talk to you in private," I told him, observing his sly look. "I have 3 questions, then I'll disappear from your life forever." I've been in your position before, and I don't want to let anyone else suffer what happened to me. Knowing exactly what she'd told him, I said, "I guess the strumpet painted me as a lousy husband, abusive or neglectful, or a womanizer. However, I'm not here to restore your perception of me. To be honest, I didn't think it would be useful. To begin with, does Sarah still have her Tuesday and Thursday Avon parties at her house?" I asked. "Sue helps Sarah on Mondays and Wednesdays with her decor sales." He shot back, "It seems you have a little bit of a bad memory." "Okay, so does she still attend Saturday tennis lessons?" I applied pressure. "Sue spends Sundays swinging a racket." He said triumphantly, "You seem to have a fuzzy memory for someone married to her for so long." "Okay, last query. Have you ever looked under the dresser in your living room's bottom drawer?" I quickly inquired. "Why would I even do it, though?" He objected. "We're no longer together because of the 3 questions I asked you." In my office, I still have all the remaining divorce documents, emails from Sarah and the other woman, legal docs, and videotapes for hours. I stated that I've had these with me for the last 3 years, and I believed you should have them. Taking out of my wallet a piece of paper that was folded and worn. Before I found out about her infidelity, this is what the other woman wrote to Sarah when she asked how to get rid of me. I realized after reading that letter that I probably still don't know her at all. "But you are the center of it all," I said, passing him the paper. But I knew Sue well enough to comprehend her obsessive-compulsive behaviors. She was fastidious about following the same protocol every time, which at times drove me insane. I said, "I also had a feeling that she'd stick to her old ways even with a new man." Though it appeared that curiosity had the upper hand, he reluctantly accepted the paper. He extended his arm to access the email. I've kept it around for 3 years, reading it again now and again and working on improving myself so that no woman would ever write something like that about me again. I've held on to that email because, of all the evidence, it struck me the hardest. It's the identical email that I noted in my previous narrative. After carefully reading the letter, Peter put it down on the table. He reached for a pen, wrote something quickly, and, much to my astonishment, walked out of the restaurant. No thank you, no backward look, nothing. He kept his expression neutral. I leaned over to read his words from the previous email. "I'll be heading back home soon. In 15 minutes, I will call you, so please wait here." I had to look under my living room dresser's bottom drawer. "Peter, please return soon." Even though he wasn't overjoyed to see the truth, I could tell he had seen it. I felt that I had touched too near to home with all three of these issues. It seems that the email was the decisive factor, and he had to confirm it for himself. I left a note on Sue's table and headed out. I would not be spending this evening in that restaurant with anyone. I called my client back in the lobby, and they were fine with rescheduling the meeting because they were already running behind schedule. I took another look at the table before turning to leave. Sue came back looking for Peter. As she sat down, she saw her old email and the note from Peter underneath. Her face went pale as she read Peter's reply, which contained the contents of her old email. My wife was crying so hard the entire restaurant turned to see her the last time I saw her. A twinge of sympathy passed through me, but I remained apathetic. That was the last time I saw her. I'm still curious if Peter discovered anything hidden beneath the dresser drawer. My comment? I wanted to do something different today. What you think about this story-based video? If OP took her back, would he be digging a hole for himself? Comment down below, sub and bell, and I will catch you in the next one.